Hey viewers, my name's Kara. I have some sad news, and please forgive me, I don't fully know how to do this video because this is not the way I would normally do it. In the past, I would have waited several weeks until I could put together an edited slideshow type video with voiceovers, but today all I'm able to do is talk to the camera and inform you. I wanted to do this because I had several other videos planned to post through the end of December and getting my year in review ready either at the end of December or beginning of January. But as you know from the past, when I've had things happen in my life and the way that I choose to address them with videos, I don't want to go ahead and do any of that stuff until you know, but I had to wait until it was somewhat an appropriate time to tell you. So, without further ado, my grandmother passed away this past week. This upcoming weekend is the funeral service. I know that, I really thought I was going to be okay for at least longer than a minute and a half in the video. All of my photos at this time, other than a little wallet-sized one that I have somewhere in the house, but of course I can't find it right now, all of the photos that I have at this time are in digital format, and since I'm using my phone to record this, I can't show you any of the pictures on the phone in the video, and I don't have my editing software currently, so I can't pop some photos up on the screen. But I wanted to go ahead and post this video so everyone knows, because then I will be sharing some photos on my Instagram, probably also on my Facebook. You have seen photos of my grandma before. You have seen her in videos in the past on my channel. We know her as Grams, because that is what I call her. Her name is Sylvia. She was born in Prato La Pelligna in Abruzzo, Italy, in 1925. She is a Taurus and stubborn as an ox, we will say. She was 93 this year and has survived a lot in her life. Honestly, my grandma was a badass, and I'm so proud to be descended from her, and I'm only learning more about her this week, which of course is kind of sad, you know, that in so many cases of people all around the world in all walks of life, we learn so much more about them after they're gone from this lifetime, from this plane of existence that they were currently living as someone that you knew. But there are just stories that never got told, and so learning a lot more, finding photo albums that a lot of us didn't know existed because Grandma kept them to herself, and, you know, like photos of her helping to build her house, the house that I grew up in, that I know as her home with my grandfather. There are photos of them building the house that none of us knew were there, and like pictures of my grandmother like mixing concrete, wearing hot pants, you know, just like really awesome. And then, which prompts people to remember stories like, oh yeah, when we were building the house, she climbed up onto the roof, climbed up a ladder onto the roof carrying a tray full of snacks and beverages, like climbed up a ladder one-handed holding a tray, just like, here, everybody have a snack, like it was nothing. So I'm learning about her really boss ladder climbing skills that I didn't know she had. Just all kinds of things. My grandmother was absolutely beautiful, and I think incredibly brave. Far more than I have been, I think. She was younger than I am now. When she came to the United States, she met my grandfather in Italy or in Sicily, where his parents are from, because my grandfather was in the military and my grandmother was working on a military base. And I've heard various stories from her over the years, so I don't know if she had multiple jobs there or some jobs near the base and some jobs actually working at the base. But through these various channels, they met and fell in love, and my grandfather, who lived in the United States, was born in the United States, but his parents are from Sicily, or were from Sicily. They brought my grandma over to the United States and let her live with them, and they lived in Cleveland. They lived not very far from where I live now, on the east side of Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember when I first brought my partner over to meet my grandma a couple years ago, I thought she wasn't really going to talk much because she doesn't like talking to new people, because in the later years of her life, she was starting to lose her hearing, and it's hard to understand when people are talking to you, and so she would feel kind of nervous or self-conscious not being able to hear people. And she also had lived through multiple strokes earlier in her lifetime when I was very young or before I was even born, which left her without a lot of her speech capabilities. And so she had to relearn how to speak English. She had to relearn a whole bunch of things. So in the later years of her life, my grandma could not speak very much Italian. She still maintained some really basic core knowledge, but really could not speak conversational Italian anymore, which is why none of us really speak it, because she lost all that knowledge earlier on. But she came over when she was younger than I am now, as I said, and they got married, and she had 4 children, my mother and my 3 uncles. My mother is the youngest of the 4. And then, of course, they had a bunch of kids, so Grandma has lots of grandkids and several great-grandchildren who she was able to meet because she stuck around until she was 93. And I'm among the youngest of the grandchildren. So my brother and I are among the youngest grandchildren, or are we the youngest grandchildren? Because I think the others I'm thinking of who are around our age, they're actually great-grandchildren. Yeah. So I think my brother and I might be the youngest of the actual grandchild generation, because we are the children of her youngest child, my mother. My mother was named after my grandma's mother from Italy, and there's a million stories I could tell about back then. There's a million stories I could tell about now, and I have before. You've seen some of them happening because you've seen her in my videos. I'm going to work on a playlist of all the videos that my grandma's been in, and then when I get my editing software, I'm going to make a compilation, and I will probably also just do a slideshow. We're putting together a slideshow with pictures from the entire family that will be played at the funeral home, and I don't know if it will also be at the services or not, but we're creating a slideshow with the whole family's photos, but I'll do one of my traditional memorial videos on my channel with just my photos and some of my favorite photos that I've been finding. There are some amazing photos of her and my grandfather that I had never seen before, and some really funny ones as well. And yeah, some stuff that I just had never seen, like her helping to build their house in the 80s, and a lot of pictures of them at the beach and at pools, a lot of my grandma in swimsuits. My grandma was a looker. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman, inside and out. And I I look back on all my time with her fondly, and I can honestly say that I don't feel I've ever taken a moment with her for granted, especially as an adult. Maybe when I was a kid, I just didn't really think about those types of things, but I've always loved her. She's always been so special to me as the only grandparent that I grew up knowing, that I knew growing up. Whatever. Who cares if I can speak? Grandma couldn't half the time, and I understood her, so you understand me. But yeah, especially as an adult, I feel like I just came to realize much earlier that, she's my only grandparent that I'm ever going to get to know, and a lot of people don't even have that, or a lot of people have all four of their grandparents still, and that's awesome. And I do think that because of my path and because of wanting to honor my maternal lineage specifically, but also really wanting to know more about my ancestors and honoring my ancestors and healing ancestral lineage, stuff like that. I think that those types of things may have led me to have more of an interest in hanging out with my grandma as often as I did, and going through photo albums and asking her questions about things. And whenever I had an opportunity, even in college, to do a writing assignment where we had to interview someone, like I had an assignment for a writing about food class that we had to interview someone about a recipe, and I chose to interview my grandmother about her spaghetti sauce recipe because that's a big thing in our family. We used to do spaghetti dinners together every Sunday when everybody lived all in the same area. Now we're kind of spread out, but that was a very big thing, and so I interviewed her about her spaghetti sauce recipe back in college. And I remember she started telling me stories about what it was like making that sauce in Italy. That, you didn't just go to the store and buy tomato paste in a can, which is how she did it here, because it was easier, frankly. And she didn't have the equipment anymore, but used to tell me how they would grill the tomatoes and pick the tomatoes and crush them and put them out on this drying rack that would drip the juices down, and there was a little slide basically that would collect the juices and the pulp, and that would be what they used as the base of the sauce. And I wasn't expecting any kind of stories like that, but it was one of those things where her short-term memory wasn't great because of the strokes that she had already experienced earlier. But her long-term memory was totally intact. She was always telling us stories about Italy and stories about moving to Cleveland when she was 20 years old in the 40s. And, now I'm 28, and I, last year or a couple years ago, posted a photo, sort of a collage of photos of my grandma when she got married, which she was about 22, I believe. My mother, a picture of her that I have when she was 24, and then me when I was 26, so I guess that was 2 years ago. Math. And just showing kind of the similarities and honoring them that way, because I was going to a women's circle where we were talking about ancestors and our mothers and our mothers' mothers and things like that. Yeah, so I don't know, I could talk forever in this video. I just wanted to let you all know, because you know her, and also because I have always been the kind of person, even when I just lost one of my animal companions, because it wasn't always just cats, but also my leopard gecko previously, that I don't feel comfortable going on and posting other videos and almost like acting like nothing's wrong. And nothing is wrong. It's not wrong. Death itself doesn't make me uncomfortable. I don't know about you, so I apologize. I tried to just kind of give it to you straight. But that doesn't bother me. It's just everything else that surrounds it is hard, and it's the first time for me, really, because the other people in our family who have passed away were not nearly as close to me as my grandmother. So I lost my grandfather, her husband, when I was only 4 years old. Some of my earliest memories are of him, but he was not there for the rest of my life. I've lost various of their siblings, some of my great aunts and uncles, when I was younger, and I didn't know them that well. And most recently, one of my uncles and one of my aunts, who again were not as close to me. I was close to them when I was younger. I don't know if I was close to them, but I spent a lot of time at their house, we'll say. I was closer to those cousins years ago. I spoke of them recently on the channel. But, and they will be coming out to visit. My mom is in town. My brother is in town. And, yeah, all I can really tell you is that for Grandma's part, I think it was fairly easygoing. I got word on the morning before the solstice. So a day that I had lots of plans to be at home and bake cookies and make some last minute gifts for my partner, and just, I thought the day was going to go a very different way. We'll say that. I got word that morning that Grandma had had another stroke and was in the hospital, and that I needed to get there right away. So I drove myself there because my partner had to work. I spent the day there, and the overall consensus at the time was that we just didn't know, and we didn't know how it was going to go. She could be around for another week, 2 weeks. It was really just, we had to kind of wait it out until they could get better scans and be able to tell more. But she was non-communicative and still partially paralyzed from the stroke. But she was holding our hand and waving her hand around and grabbing at her blankets and everything, which the doctors didn't think was conscious. But, you know, she was there. We felt like she was very much there. We were talking to her, singing to her, laughing with her, teasing her, my uncle mostly. You know, she was around, and that was the consensus at the time, was just, we don't really know, so it's best that everybody can get here and say hi and hang out with her and see her. And 2 days later, I was at home, and really, there was a lot going on, obviously. There's a lot going on in general when stuff happens like this, when health stuff with your family happens, or even with your friends. But, so there was a lot of stuff going on, and I just decided, even though it was like 1 a.m. at the time, I already hadn't been able to sleep for days, unrelated to Grandma, but then, well, for months, I haven't really been sleeping, unrelated to Grandma. And then when Grams got sick and was in the hospital, I definitely couldn't sleep. So it was 1 a.m. a couple nights later, and I decided I needed to be with her right then and there, just because there was a lot of stress going on, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to sleep unless I'm with her, so let's just go. So my partner and I packed our bags. I brought a book. I was going to read them both to sleep because I still didn't think I was going to be able to sleep. I brought my laptop in case I had time to do some work, or, you know, still couldn't sleep overnight. And brought my pillow because we just planned to stay the night with her in the hospital. And we got there around 2 in the morning. I went to the ER entrance because luckily where she was, there's no restrictions on visiting hours, but they close most of the doors, of course. So I went to the ER so they could let us in. I said, we're going to spend the night with my grandma. They said, okay. They let us up. And by the time we got up to her room, it was 2:15. And my cousin was there and said, thank God you made it. I think this is it. And so I got to be there, even though the rest of the family lives or was staying, in the case of like my brother, 5 minutes away down the road. And it happened so quickly that my cousin didn't have time to text everyone and get them there in time. I live almost an hour away, so if I hadn't gotten the feeling, the sudden urge that I just needed to be with her, and I just wanted to spend the night in her room, I wanted to read her a book, I just wanted to spend time with her. If I hadn't gotten that feeling when I did, I wouldn't have been there in time. There's no way. They wouldn't have even had time to notify me, let alone for me to get all the way there. It happened that quickly and calmly. She may have actually been sleeping. It's hard to tell because she couldn't talk to us and was spending a lot of the time sleeping anyway, and they had her on some medication to keep her calm, basically. So it's hard to say for sure, but it might have actually been in her sleep. It was calm, quiet, quick, and I really couldn't ask for anything better for her. You know, she's finally back with my grandpa, who she's been wanting to rejoin for a long time now, but held out because of all of us. I'm a little sad that, well, actually, I'll save that. I'll save that for another time. But, yeah, no, I'm okay. I'm mostly okay. I have my moments, as you've noticed, even in this video. Especially every morning around 2 a.m. When I'm still awake and I notice the time. And I can't help but count how many hours it's been. Hasn't been that long. But yeah, we're spending a lot of time together as a family. We've had a lot of laughs, a lot of crying, a lot of yelling, but that's also just because there's so many of us and it's so loud. We just have to yell to have conversations. It's really horrible. It's like being at the club trying to talk to your friend with the music being like, it's just that kind of so the yelling doesn't necessarily mean that it's always bad. It's just a bunch of Italians in the same house. What are you gonna do? But a lot of yelling, some arguing, a lot of mediating, a lot of trying to stay out of things, a lot of inserting ourselves into things where we think that something else needs to be said, that something else needs to be paid attention to. A lot of, just a lot. A lot of pictures, a lot of food, a lot of music, and there is a song that my grandfather used to sing to my grandmother and me, especially when we would go out to the restaurant, that they had those little mini jukeboxes on the table, and it had that song, and he would always play it for us and sing it to us. And I won't share with you what it is. I would like to keep that a little private for the moment. But my mom and I were at the house yesterday going through pictures, and my mom was working on some little keepsake crafty items that she decided last minute she wanted to do, and I was helping with that. and a lot was going on, as always, and we had one of the music channels on TV, and they tend to like play the same playlist over and over, so we had been listening to it all day, and we had heard some of the same songs on repeat, and then all of a sudden Grandpa's song played on this music channel, and we had been listening to that channel all day and it had never played that song. And every channel plays like a completely different genre and decade of music, so we had no way of knowing that it would appear on that channel, especially after listening to it for several hours. So Grandpa's song started playing, and my mom started crying and took that as a sign that Grandma is safely there with him, because my mom also heard that song play when she was at work before she even flew out here. She heard that song play and took that as a warning from Grandpa that my mom was not going to get back home in time to see Grandma before she went, and she didn't. So it's kind of bookends of that song being messages from my grandfather. And no, so my mom wasn't there, but I was, and she's here now and made us all spaghetti dinner, and I've been there every other day, pretty much, trying to spend some time at home catching up on sleep, which is still difficult. And yeah, so I'll let you go. This was just sort of meant to be an explanation so that you understand why I wasn't posting any of my usual happy solstice and history of the winter solstice and here's what I got for solstice and that kind of stuff, because I spent the solstice with my grandmother, and every day since then, even if not physically with her. That's been it. And as I said, the funeral services are this weekend, and then my other cousins arrive New Year's Eve, so I don't know when the next video will get up on this channel. Life happens. Family takes precedence. I'm not a big family person, as you probably know, but when it comes to certain members of who I consider my immediate family, my mother, my brother, my grandmother, they do come first, and especially my grandmother. We knew this day would come. Obviously, we never quite know when it's gonna be. Yeah, it's just all very new for me. Yeah. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for getting to know what little you have gotten to know about my grandmother through my videos over the years. And again, I'll be posting photos probably coming up. If you are sponsoring my Patreon, you already knew all this. They were told sort of a little bit along the way, getting updates. And so they will get more pictures and more stories probably as the process goes on, for my personal in-the-moment feelings. But the rest of you will see some things on social media, and when I obtain editing software again, I will be doing a video, or a couple different video projects for her. So yeah, I don't know how to end this video because well, it doesn't end, does it? So thanks for watching. Don't forget to be awesome. Blessed be. And goodbye.